There's one thing that I know, is that the majority of the best stories ever told in the world all started on a bar stool. And as I was getting ready for tonight, I was speaking at an elementary school north of Guelph. And when I got to the class, the kids were just finished playing with clay. And it reminded me of a story that I wanted to share tonight because it fits in with so much of what we're about to hear. It's a story of a couple who went to England to celebrate their 25th wedding anniversary. Couple were avid antiquers, and while they were out strolling one day, they came across an antique store. They walked in. After browsing around, they noticed up high on the shelf, there's this unique and gorgeous teacup. The woman said to the store owner, "Would you mind if I saw the teacup? It's absolutely beautiful." So the store owner reached up and grabbed it and gently placed it in the woman's hands. And as the woman was cradling the teacup started to speak. It said, "You don't understand. I wasn't always like this. There was a day not that long ago that I was just a piece of clay. But my master took me and pounded me and rolled me and flattened me. And I didn't like it. I asked him not to. But he said, 'Not yet.' He then took me and threw me onto a spinning plate. And I was spinning round and around. And I was getting dizzy and almost sick. And I pleaded, 'Please stop. I can't take this anymore.' But he just grinned and said, 'Not yet.' He then took me and placed me into an oven. It was a temperature I had never experienced before. It was unbearable. I pounded at the door and cried, 'Let me out.' But he just grinned and nodded his head and said, 'Not yet.' Finally, the door opened and he took me out and he placed me on a shelf where I began to cool. It was so wonderful. It was so much better than it had been. But just as I had started to cool, he grabbed me off the shelf and with a paintbrush started to paint me with all these different colors. The fumes were horrible. I begged him not to, but he just said, 'Not yet.' After he was done, he took me and put me into another oven, but this time it wasn't like the first oven. It was twice the temperature. It was unbearable. I was suffocating. I pleaded, I begged, I cried, just when I thought I couldn't take any more and I was about to quit. The door opened, and he put me back on a shelf where I waited and wondered, what else is he going to do to me? And after about an hour, he took me and he placed me in front of a mirror and he told me to look at myself. And I did. But that wasn't me. That can't be me. It's beautiful in the mirror. Wait a minute. That is me. And my master said, "This is where I want you to remember. I know you didn't like being rolled and pounded and flattened, but if I hadn't have done that, you would have just dried out. If I hadn't have put you onto that spinning plate, if I stopped when you asked me to, you would have just crumbled. And if I didn't put you in the first oven, you wouldn't have held your shape. And I know that you didn't like the fumes from the paint. But if I didn't do that, you'd have no color in your life. And I know that that second oven was even more unbearable and the temperatures were horrible. But if I didn't do that, the hardness that you had developed wouldn't have stuck and you wouldn't have survived. You're now finished. You're perfect. And you're exactly the way I envisioned you'd be when I set out to create you."